We are activating your unique self-discovery one show at a time. The Orchard of Wisdom Self-Discovery podcast at your fingertips, just waiting to inspire and invite you in discovering just how awesome you really are and how to navigate through life in joy, enrichment, personal abundance, in mind, body, spirit, heart, and soul. All the people we bring you are here to serve you on your journey of life. Do enjoy our next show. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Quantum Spirituality right here on selfdiscoverymedia.com. I'm your host, Sarah Troy. My wonderful guest is Catherine Carrigan. We're going to be talking about, yes, energy. We're going to be talking about finding your balance, your energy, and your happiness the way it was intended, naturally. We love to do everything synthetically nowadays, but we don't realize that natural is actually the way to go, and that is more achievable in accessing it than it is from any form of synthetic. So in The Reading of the Soul, her new book, a medical intuitive healer, Catherine, reveals how you may be suffering from the wounded spirit. The karmas of your soul may be carrying from this and other lifetimes, and the burden of negative spiritual energies, and the way traditional medicine or natural healing may not be working to heal what ails you. So what is your soul's purpose? What is your soul's longing? The stories herein will uplift your soul and help you understand why you were born. We've all got a calling, folks. We're all here for a reason. Reading the Soul captures the essence of what all spiritual knowledge is based upon. Catherine gives us a clear understanding of your soul's purpose and the different soul contracts you choose before you even incarnate. She fills the holes and the questions that most people have about why certain things are happening in their life. The Reading of the Soul is insightful and uplifting. She is an author of 10 books. I've only got 4 on the posting here, but if you click on that 4, it will lead you to all 10. She is a medical intuitive for readings and quantum healing, health and fitness columnist, a playwright of 12 plays, past spokesperson with the Depression Wellness Network, former national spokesperson for Johnson & Johnson, owner and host of Total Fitness Radio Show, and also the author of Healing Depression, a Holistic Guide, New York, Marlowe & Co., 1999, a book discussing nutrition and lifestyle to heal depression without drugs. To say that she is more than qualified to help you is an understatement. But let's get to know more about her, who she is, why she does what she does, and about her own soul. Welcome to the show, love.
Thank you so much, Sarah. And I felt a very strong calling to be on Sarah's show. So my intention is to be of great service to everyone who's listening today.
Very often people will talk about mind, heart, and body, and they leave out the soul. And I get the soul is the compass. The soul is where the wisdom channels through. It resonates with the heart and truth. It gives it to the spirit for action, and it extracts from the mind what the mind needs to know when the mind needs to know it. But so many people miss out on understanding what the soul really does.
Absolutely. Sarah, when I do medical intuitive readings, I read what I call the 5 levels of healing. So there's the physical body, you know what that is, your organs, your bones, and so on. There's the energy body, which includes your chakras, the acupuncture system, and the breath. The emotional body, which is the largest part of you. Your mental body, which is your thoughts and your beliefs, your mental operating system, if you will. And finally, there's your soul. So your soul is the eternal part of you. And not that I know anything, but in my humble opinion, after 63 years on this planet, your soul controls your mind. Your mind, right? Your mind controls your emotions. Your emotions control your energy, and your energy body controls your physical. So when we want to heal, when I do work as a medical intuitive healer, I work on all 5 levels all at once. And when we work on all 5 levels, then you can experience healing that is actually quite rapid into the realm of the miraculous. But if you only think, my health, it just has to do with my physical body, then you're missing out.
Well, you're missing enormous parts of your entire beingness. We've been conditioned that we're blobs of flesh. But really we're spiritual beings having a human existence, and we have to incorporate everything in the wholeness of us to actually understand what experience we're here to have and also what purpose we're here to serve. But if we're not tuned in or not connected to any of those five particular senses, we're off kilter.
Absolutely, for sure. And my book, Reading the Soul, explains when I do a medical intuitive reading, what I actually look for on the soul level. So, one of the first things I look for is sort of where you are in your ascensions process. So, the first, when you're born, you're not totally awake.
Yeah.
So you're unconscious. You don't, even if you have a purpose or you realize I
Mm-hmm.
don't have a purpose, you may not know what it is.
Yeah.
Then the second stage is awakening. It's like, wow, okay, I'm awakening to who I really am. I'm awakening to my purpose. And then finally, that third stage is conscious, where you know who you are at the soul level, you know why you're here, and you're actively fulfilling your purpose, and you're doing what you're here to do, just like you are
Yeah.
here
Mm-hmm.
performing your soul purpose. So then the next thing I look at is karmas. So and let me start by explaining, in my view, and again, not that I know anything, this is my understanding, what karma actually is. So I have to start by stating my personal belief. And that is, my personal belief is the most selfish thing I can ever do is to be kind, generous, and thoughtful for everyone. Because whatever I put out into the universe
Mm-hmm.
is precisely geographically exactly what I receive back.
Exactly.
And so karma is the result, the mathematical result, if you will, just like gravity. I don't have to understand gravity for it to work. If I drop a heavy object, it's going to fall to the floor. And, and I don't have to understand karma to experience the effects of it.
Right.
So your karma is the soul level effect of everything that you have put out into the universe in this lifetime and all
Mm.
your other lifetimes. And again, once you understand that your soul is eternal and that you're literally passing through time,
Mm-hmm. And body.
different bodies, right? So you may be, here in this lifetime, I'm here to deal with certain karmas.
Mm-hmm.
And part of the work that I do is actually karmic healing, where I call in the lords of karma and help you complete those soul level contracts.
Mm.
So look at where you are in your soul ascension process. What karmas are you here to, to clear in this
Mm.
lifetime? Or sort of, it's kind of like your to-do list.
Yes.
If you think about when you go to the grocery, it's like, okay, I need cat food, dog food, butter, and so on. This is what you're here to do right now at the soul level. I also look at wounded spirit. And
Mm.
wounded spirit is when you have experienced wounds so deep, they
Mm-hmm.
go to the level of your soul, they go
Yes.
past the emotional.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have a wounded spirit, you may be stuck in anxiety and depression, and no drug or natural remedy
Mm.
can even touch it because you're so wounded.
Yeah.
And if you have a wounded spirit, you really want to clear that, because if you don't, because of the law of resonance, you'll only attract other wounded spirits.
Right.
So
That
wounded
that
spirits,
I can yes. Yes, definitely.
definitely. And then I look at how your soul communicates with you. So there's four primary psychic gifts: claircognizance, which is my gift, which is psychic knowing; clairaudience, it's where you hear things; clairsentience is psychic feeling; and then clairvoyance is where you receive information through vision.
Yeah.
And so I look at how your soul communicates with you, because lots of people say, "Oh, I'm not intuitive. I'm not intuitive,"
Mm.
but your soul is always 24
Mm-hmm.
trying to communicate
Yeah.
with. And I always joke, you only have to get hit over the head when you're really not paying attention, right?
Yes. The
So
cosmic two by four.
exactly. So if you just had a cosmic two by four, it's possibly because you haven't really been listening enough at the soul level.
Hmm.
And finally, I like to look at soul medicine that works for you. And again, once you understand that your soul is the most powerful, eternal part of you and controls everything else to do with your health, your well being, and your energy, and even your thoughts and your outlook on life, working at the soul level and the spiritual level is the most powerful level to do any healing work with. And so, examples of soul medicine: time in nature, laughter,
Hmm.
hugs,
Hmm. Hmm.
service, being of service to others, dancing,
Yes.
right?
Playing.
Right,
Yes.
absolutely. Yes, being with little children,
Yes.
anything that just absolutely
Lifts you
uplifts
up.
your
Hmm.
spirit. Because when you understand healing, what is healing? One of my second book is actually called "What is Healing." Um, Here's a simple way of understanding it. If you think about when you have a cold, we've all had a cold at some point in our life.
Hmm.
Your whole energy seems super slowed down. You can hardly get off the couch. So dis-ease or
Yes.
illness, all illness is slowed down vibration, right?
Hmm.
Just like when you have a cold, or if you've ever been in a nursing home, the energy is very slowed down. And you may look at your wristwatch and it's like, oh my gosh, I've only been here 10 minutes. It feels like 3 hours.
Yeah.
So healing happens when you lift your vibration.
Hmm.
So once you understand that, when you lift your vibration, at the soul level, you can lift yourself out of all kinds of disease and illness, and by shifting your energy and working and figuring out what soul medicine do I need right now?
Hmm.
Spiritual community, spiritual family. So, for example, many of us, maybe in this lifetime, you didn't have the father you wanted or
Right.
needed, or the mother you wanted or needed, or the brother or sister. Well, you can create
Yeah.
spiritual family,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Or you may feel all alone, and unless you're listening to Sarah's wonderful program, and it's like, okay, there are like-minded people out there.
Many of them, and many people in your position, many people who've gone through it, and you're here now at the healing. So, yes,
So
we're not
spirit,
alone.
yeah, spiritual community. So
Hmm.
really looking at the soul level, what is the soul medicine that you need at this time?
Hmm.
So that's kind of an overview when I do a medical intuitive reading and I look at that level, what I'm actually looking for.
Right. And a lot to unpack there. One of the thing is, I mean, you were talking about me on so many levels. I know that at least 50 past lifetimes, um, I came here eons ago, as to be a soul and heart igniter to help humankind ignite to the universal guidance and love. Um, and I've lived many lifetimes, and I've had many lifetimes cleared from me because they were holding me back. And then discovered that there was even more cellular memories there of persecution, burnt at the stake, this and that, being, spiritual person in the last few decades of, centuries was not a healthy thing to be. Although that is where our awakening was, it was also the threatening to the establishment that had control over people. So I know I've been through all of that, and I've been through lots of various cellular cleansing. I've also known always that my soul is always been trying to ignite with my human purpose or the human heart, um, to do the work that I need to do here. But I also am an empath, so therefore I feel way too much. And that feeling is sometimes can be very saturating, especially when you look at what humankind does to each other. And it's like, we have such ability to be of such beautiful essence of love, of kindness, of caring, of illumination, of creativity, of transcendence. But we choose to be violent and cruel to one another. And that comes from pain. that comes hurt people. And we have a lot of wounded people out there that instead of the willingness to take the journey to ignite their heart and soul in that healing, are wounding other people, including themselves, because every time you hurt someone else, you're equally hurting yourself. And we have a nation of that, or a world of that right now. So the only way, you talked about setting your stage, I kind of looked at it as you're about to have a party. Well, that means you're going to do some major cleanup, right? To major cleanup in your house. You want people to come in and feel at home and feel joyful in your place and not looking at dirty linen or dust or this or that. So equally, that is our heart and our soul, isn't it? We've got to kind of clear out the garbage that very often is what people see as opposed to the beautiful essence of where you are and what you're presenting that hides behind it. So we have to be willing to do the work, because we don't do this just by acknowledging it. We've got to seek out people like yourself that can help us on this soul journey of how to clear what is not serving us and how to embrace the beautiful gift that we really are.
Great observations. And, the way I look at it is I create this space where people can experience their own soul.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And, you said several things. Part of what I do, many of my clients are empaths and highly sensitive individuals and very intuitive. And when you don't know how to handle it, I say it's kind of like owning a Ferrari and not knowing how to drive.
Right.
And
you don't know how to do stick. You used to automatic.
yeah. So when you are a highly sensitive person, you have to become strong enough to handle your sensitivity.
Yeah.
And if you don't, you'll get totally blown out.
Absolutely.
And I also appreciate what you were saying, because I remember several years ago, I thought, like, as someone once said to me about my gifts as a medical intuitive, they said, you're very good at many things, but your gifts as a medical intuitive cannot be taught or learned.
No.
And that's true. And so I did some past life work. I've had numerous past lives doing this work.
Yes.
One of them was I was an herbalist, and I consulted with a royal family. Another, I was a little Indian man in India, and people would come. I would look into their eyes, and there'd be scribes off to the side, and I would tell the scribes they need this or that herb, and then I would pray with the person, and they would experience healing. And then another lifetime, I was a seer for an Indian tribe, and I would get the visions for the entire tribe on where do we need to go, what do we need to. So I was the medicine woman, but also the visionary for the tribe.
Yeah.
And it is helpful, I think, when you begin to do work like you and I do, really understand what are the past life, the past life roots of my work. Because then it tells you have an innate understanding of how to do certain things.
This is your soul's purpose. Lifetime after lifetime. It doesn't matter which body it's in, which time frame it's in. This is your soul's purpose. And this is what you will do, maybe in different form or a different style, but each time this is the gift that you are in your soul to partake through the human body.
Yes. And of course, many times when I'm doing my medical intuitive readings, I'm on Zoom with people all over the world. But I also work for a healing center in Costa Rica, and I've worked with them for over 6 years now, maybe 7. And when I work for them, and before they hired me, the owner of the healing center got readings on himself from 100 intuitives from all over the world. And they hired me because I was the most accurate. And when I do that work, what actually happens, I'm not interacting with the individual in any way. They send their photograph of their face, and I look in their eyes, and they fill out a form. It's usually a short form. They tell me what they eat and what they want or whatever. And I sit there for an hour and a half, and I write a whole medical intuitive readings simply by looking straight into their eyes.
Yes, the
When
eyes
you
to
look,
the soul.
yeah, and when you look into your left eye, the left eye is the window of the soul. And if I'm going to use a negative example, if anybody doesn't believe me, if you go to Google and you look up the photograph of Muhammad Atta, who was one of the terrorists who blew up the World Trade Center,
Hmm.
just look at his left eye. It's absolutely frightening. And
Hmm.
yet, on this flip side, you can look into the eyes of Mother Teresa, and you can literally see and feel the light of her soul.
Hmm.
So when you're wanting to really see the soul or experience the soul, look straight into someone's left eye, and you'll know and feel and sense a tremendous amount, even if you're not a medical intuitive.
Right. Well, kind of that explain things because kind of the left eye in, right eye out. So the right eye is seeing out, and that's my weak eye. Right? So I don't like what I'm seeing. Right. So, if we're having eye problems, there may be a reason behind that, what we're intaking and or what is we're projecting that others aren't seeing. You talked about all those senses before. I have visions, but the visions I have to feel to understand what they are. So I feel visions and they always play out like a movie. Once that vision goes into place, it is in action, it's in fluidity, and it shows me all the possibilities of what can be. And I've been what I call a knowingness person right since childhood, where I would tell people something, and how do you know that? I don't know. Can you repeat it? No. It's what you needed to know in the now, and it wasn't for me to really understand it. It was for me just to pass on, right? So it's always been that journey for me. I don't know about you, though. You know, I always say I'm a spiritual being having a human existence, and the human existence has been rather rocky. Um, Doing the work that you're doing there's an awful lot of people, the naysayers out there, and the people that will judge, and the persecution, which this lifetime was for me to be free of that persecution, because up until my last lifetime, I was being that way. But do you find that now, because I'm 5 years older than you, so now that there is more of a hunger, an awakening, and an embracement of the soul work of the heart of people where in the past it would have been, well, we still get it, oh, woke. They love this word woke right now, and they love bashing it around. And anything to do with this, especially in the TVs or anything, they'll make it all into a cult type thing, that it's something evil. But more and more people are waking up to the fact spirit, being in spirit, listening to our souls, igniting our hearts, stepping into that knowingness is something that they're hungry to do and are igniting to do. Do you find that now you're
I
seeing that different frequency?
I don't have that problem.
Hmm.
And part of it is that I'm a very grounded, practical, solution oriented person. Also, number one, I'm grounded, practical, and solution oriented. And, what happens for me is I help people solve problems. And then when you help people solve actual problems, then they just tell your friends and you have plenty of business.
Right.
Second is I respect all paradigms. I have
Hmm.
clients who are doctors and lawyers and nurses and naturopaths and everything. So I feel that part of what we have to do as practitioners is to actually respectfully speak someone's language.
Hmm.
My one of the things that I tell people is in the universe, especially now, there are many forms of healing.
Yes.
And my brother, father, grandfather, great grandfather, and uncle were all or are doctors, right?
Hmm.
So I respect that paradigm. But people come to me because they can't figure it out. They've
Right,
been to a
exactly.
doctor.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, well, I've been there. I've taken the drugs. I've been to the doctors, and here we are. I can't get well. So, when you come from that solution oriented space
Hmm.
and that respectful space, and you help gently and respectfully guide people to their next step of awareness, that's totally great.
Yes, exactly. But do you find that if people, I'm not earth grounded. I'm most certainly, a sky person. So, do you find that right now that more and more people are open to it? Whereas in the past it would be, it was only Western medicine. Anything else was hoo-ha. I had a wonderful woman on for 5 years with me as a host, and she retired when I think she was 81.
Mm.
And wonderful information that she said as a holistic healer. But back in the day, they called her snake oil woman because, everything alternative was, was something deemed not valid, although it had been around for thousands of years. Um, but in her lifetime, she has seen the difference of people now looking at this type of healing as something that is um, not only sought after but desperately needed. It's less taboo now, and more people are opening up to the fact that why have I put all my eggs in one basket, with medical, and I've come to the end of where they can help me. There's got to be something else out there, and they're more open to what that is.
So I'm 63 years old. I've done natural healing since I was 34. And I
Mhm.
have, again, maybe it's because of the way that I interact with people in a respectful, grounded way that I haven't had that problem. It's, again, if you solve people's problems, they tell
Yeah.
your friends.
No, but I'm not presenting it as a problem. I'm just saying the awareness. Maybe because you have consistent people, you don't see the shift that is happening right now. That there's a massive shift to people going. Um, what I'm saying, the universe has turned the volume up on us. Over the last few years, 10, 12 years, it's been turning the volume up a notch all the time for us to
Yeah.
raise our frequency, raise our vibration. And in stepping into this higher consciousness, and many people are feeling the pain. And the pain is of the acknowledgement of what we're doing to each other, the pain that we're inflicting on each other. And those that are willing to go through that pain and transcend into the love vibration, kindness, caring, healing,
Yeah.
are people that have raised that frequency, and the people that are absolutely will come to you because they do know the essence of who you are and what you're doing. But there is an awakening happening, whereas what you do, maybe you've been doing it 29 years, and as you said, it's been referral, people celebrating out there. But it's still been something for a lot of people that has been a closed gate because the media or other people are judging it. But now I see more of awakening of people stepping into not only seeking out the healers, but realizing they are a healer themselves.
Yes. I am the host of the Natural Healing Show for UK Health Radio. We have a weekly global audience of 59,000 people. And then in addition to that, I put up videos on YouTube.
Hmm.
So there's all kinds of wonderful natural healing. And if
Yeah.
you're listening and you want to be my guest, send me an email at Catherinecarrigan.com and tell me about what you do, because I love sharing the
Hmm.
wisdom of other natural healers from all
Yes.
over the world, whether they're herbologists or authors or flower essence practitioners or energy healers. And there's all this wonderful wisdom that
Yeah.
people are wanting to share.
That's what I'm saying is that people are so much more awoken to it now. I've been doing this nearly 11 years, and just even in that 11 years, how many people are now looking at the podcasts, to get the information, because they realize there's got to be more. There's got to be an answer. There has to be a solution. And they realize that it is in shows like this and like what you're doing, where you're sharing what other people are doing that other people are unaware of. Oh, I didn't know that can happen. Oh, that makes sense. So I'm connecting or resonating with that. And this is what I'm saying right now is that there is a beautiful awakening going on where more and more people are looking more to the heart, the soul, the spirit, the body, the mind healing, and not just looking at it as a kind of a blob of flesh that you put another drug in. Right. So that seeking out is happening right now, which is wonderful. Now, I'm glad to hear that for 29 years you haven't even had to do any of that. I'm just saying that this is the observation of the awakening that I've been seeing in people.
Yes. Well, and again, once you really grasp that you're a multidimensional
Yeah,
being, whenever you have an illness, it is happening on all five levels.
right. Exactly. There's
So,
not just one. No, it affects everything.
no, yeah. So, but as you address what's happening on all five levels, actually, you can move through it much more quickly. So, for
Mm,
example, let's pick a practical thing. Let's say you're constantly having digestive issues, right? And you mentioned the gift of clairsentience, which is
hmm
psychic feeling. Well, a lot of feelers have chronic digestive problems.
hmm
They're so much absorbing so much energy through
Yeah,
their third chakra, right? And again, this goes back to what I was saying about helping people manage their intuitive
yeah.
gifts, right? I know that when I was younger, just being me sometimes felt like 1,000 volts of electricity going
hmm
through an ordinary light socket,
Yes, yes,
right?
yes.
So I've had to learn how to ground my energy,
hmm
right? So, but going back to the example, chronic digestive problems. Okay, you go to, all the MDs, you go to
hmm
the gastroenterologist, run out of options. And again, maybe there's something physical that the doctors have missed. Maybe they've missed yeast overgrowth, or maybe they missed parasites.
hmm
Medical intuitive, I'll go, okay, you've got parasites in your liver and your
mm
kidney. And here they are. And here's the herbs.
Yes.
Here's where you can purchase the herbs to get rid of them.
hmm
But again, when you're constantly overusing that third chakra to process everything
mm
that's happening, then that third chakra goes overactive, and then you can have chronic digestive problems that cannot be solved by regular
No,
physical means, right?
they wouldn't even know what a chakra is anyway. So, you know, they're
Yeah.
just looking at organs and they also don't look at, they specialize in a organ or a system, and they don't look at other systems that are working with that system, and doctors don't talk to each other. My brother's been going through this with kidney failure, and he had a heart attack. And the
Mm.
drugs that they've got him on are conflicting with each other, but doctors don't talk with each other. They don't look at, well, I see you're on this and you've got this problem. Instead of looking him as a whole, right?
Right.
A whole, it's compartmentalized. And this is where I think we are so disconnected and causing dis-ease within our psyche and our entire health balance is because everything about our life seems to be compartmentalized instead of looking at life as a whole organic thing.
And I'll tell you a story since you brought up kidney failure and heart disease. So, true story. So, years ago, I had a client who's a young man, 34, I think, and he had high blood pressure, completely uncontrolled. And he was on, I think, 4 heart medications, and he had kidney failure. So here was a young man. He was married. He had children. He was not able to work. He was a barber. And every morning he got up at 4 a.m. to drive to a dialysis center to
Mm,
get dialysis. So the medicine didn't work. The blood pressure was uncontrolled. And when your blood pressure, your kidneys directly affect your blood pressure. So I do all my work prayerfully. And I taught him, I thought, what can I do to actually make a difference with this person? So I taught him breathing exercises.
hmm
When you have uncontrolled blood pressure, it's because you're stuck in the sympathetic nervous system. You're
hmm
stuck in the stress. And even if you can't, even if logically you want to get out of it, you can't get out of it.
Right.
So I taught him breathing exercises that he could do every morning. And then I created videos that anyone can watch for free on YouTube. If you go to YouTube and Google Catherine Carrigan, or look up Catherine Carrigan on YouTube, and then look up 8 minutes to inner peace. And it's an 8 minute breathing routine. It will cut anxiety in half in
hmm
8 minutes. Xanax doesn't even work that fast. So
Right.
it's incredibly helpful for anxiety and incredibly helpful for normalizing your blood pressure.
Mm.
Well, I helped this gentleman. Then I made the videos. Then I wrote a book, the little book of breath work, which includes breathing exercises, hand mudras, And all your energy system, your acupuncture meridians either begin or
Mm-hmm.
end in your hands or feet. So when you change the position of your hands, you're literally changing the flow of energy in your body.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I wrote, and I remember my guidance told me very strongly, you need to write this book about breathing. Well, I'm like everyone else. Sometimes I argue with my guidance.
Of course.
I was like, seriously, seriously. Well, anyway, I published the book in 2019. What happened in March 2019? What happened
Right,
a year later? The coronavirus pandemic.
right.
I gave that book away for free to people in 17 different countries during the pandemic. Because when you get COVID,
Yeah.
what happens is you have trouble breathing.
Yes.
And then this year, or actually within the past year, Esquire magazine named that book, The Little Book of Breathwork, one of the top 30 wellness books of all time.
Wow. Great.
So the moral of the story is
Mm.
always listen to your guidance.
Yeah.
And especially when we are in service and do our work prayerfully, how can I genuinely make a difference in this person's life? You're always going to be led to the right answer.
And you talk about breath. I'm an asthmatic, so I've had the breathing thing since the age of 2. And so many people. I'm just putting a note here. 8-minute YouTube. So
Yeah,
I'm going to
eight
make
minutes.
sure. Right.
It's
So
called 8 minutes to inner peace.
I'm going to
And I have
actually.
to interject, I had asthma as well,
Mm-hmm.
early 30s, and I took inhalers,
Mm-hmm.
an awful experience. And for me, that was a motivation for me to get more exercise because in I was very young. I mean, I'm talking 28, 29, 30, and I would get out of breath walking across a flat parking lot. And I've been checked by doctors, it's totally gone. So,
Mm.
and also, if you go to YouTube, I have videos on acupressure for the lungs.
Mm.
So that when you get a cold or flu or the COVID and your breathing is restricted, you can do acupressure on yourself to open up the energetic pathways to your lungs so that you can breathe better.
I'm a huge fan of acupressure and jitsu, all the little meridians, tapping,
Yeah.
all of that because it's all kind of igniting things, keeping the flow in. And when people are anxious or depressed or angry, what happens? Crunch.
Yeah.
Everything crunches up. When you crunch it up, what happens? Breath does not flow, energy does not flow, nothing within your body flows. And when things don't flow, then they stagnate, and that's when you start getting disease and things breaking down. So people
Right.
don't realize how important our breath is. We take it for granted. We're breathing in and out. As an asthmatic, believe me, I don't take it for granted. I got the Asian flu when I was 2, and I
Mm,
ended up with asthma. So I've been asthmatic now for 66 years. Lungs are pretty damaged, obviously, for all of these years of it, right? But I understand the breath and how important it is. And I think if people could just be mindful, even just if that's all you take away from today is the breath, you know, we want you to have the soul connection, but, understanding how important that breath is. And then, as you said, the various meridians, the acupuncture, the acupressure, all of that type of thing that sets things off and flow again. But I know you're a Qigong expert as well, and people don't realize, like Tai Chi and Qigong, that whether you have physical ailments or not, and you can't do heavy stuff or yoga and you can't get on the floor and can't get back up, Tai Chi or Qigong, it's all about deliberate movement and it's all about stretching the body up so the energy can flow.
yes. And going back to what we're talking about, if you're listening to this, you go to YouTube, look up Catherine Carrigan acupressure for the lungs, because when you get sick, and I'll tell a story. I remember about a year ago, I got bronchitis. I did not have COVID, but I did have bronchitis. And it was so bad, it was deep in my lungs. And I did the acupressure, and it really works. So
Mm,
again, when you get to the point where you're having an asthmatic attack, or you have the flu, or you have bronchitis and you can't breathe, it's actually pretty frightening. But if
yes.
you can learn some acupressure techniques that open up the airways. It's like you're back in control.
You're right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. And
Because so
like
much,
if you have got, gunk on the lungs, well, if the airways are tightened up, then the gunk can't come up. So you want to open everything up so that you can release that gunk that is there, because bronchitis comes from it being trapped. And then it's antibiotics and all of that type of thing, which nowadays they say, no, we don't give antibiotics for bronchitis. And I go, with me, you do, because I know my body. If I don't, then I'm going to get really, really sick. And the right bronchitis, then I'm over it very quickly. But I had one back in June, a really bad one. Unfortunately, we don't even have doctors here right now. We have 6 million people without a doctor. So, it's off to emergency where people are literally dying to see a doctor.
yeah.
So I think the whole thing about is like, okay, we have a medical emergency here in the world right now where there aren't enough nurses and doctors, and ERs are having to close early or only take so many people, and so many people are missing diagnoses because they're not seeing that. This is why we actually have to look at our health and go, I need to take ownership here and not rely just on the Western medicine, and be open to receive different holistic measures that I can empower myself in my own healing with the right guidance. And I think more and more people, and that's part of maybe why the universe has made shortages of things, is to pushes in other directions, to other forms of healing that is more holistic, but more encompassing of the whole body, heart, mind, soul, spirit, rather than just attention on one thing.
For sure.
So we're being pushed in that way. And that, I love the way you talked about the whole 5 points. A lot of people get stuck on the belief system, and our beliefs are in a way. And yes, they are, it's old programming that not only is in our life experience, but it's in our DNA of our ancestors, but it's also past life DNA that we need to reset and reprogram. But it's also looking at how we look at emotion. So many people have become emotional over an emotion rather than looking at the emotion. Why is it there? Spending the emotion and moving on. So there's so many layers to us, but it's all kind of governed by the soul igniting the heart, igniting the spirit, igniting the energy within us. And if we don't look at ourselves as the whole picture, then we're never going to be wholly well, right?
Well said, Sarah. Very well said.
So, I love the way you named out the 5 points, most certainly, because, again, we look at and think it's just one problem, and it isn't. And I think the great deal of what we need to do as a human being is to actually surrender. This doesn't mean you're broken. It just means you're not functioning on optimization. And that by balancing everything out, because it's about balance, isn't it? If one thing's out of sync, it throws everything else out of sync. And if we're not in balance, then we're not going to be in flow. And our life is about rhythm and flow.
Right. So let's go back to talking about the lungs, because on an emotional level, lungs are about grief and depression and regret. So when we can look at that, and when you look at the pandemic, obviously it was a time of great grief.
Yes.
Because of all the changes. I mean,
Yeah.
literally society changed on every level.
Yeah.
Right. But I think that as a society, we've moved past that. We've moved into a new normal, right? And the virus may not be gone, but we have shifted. And all viruses are calls for a shift in our consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yes.
when you get a virus, it's asking you to change your not just your attitude, but your entire consciousness.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. That conscious rising. Absolutely. Yeah.
Conscious rising. And I do think that it's about having a greater appreciation for us. Even I, at the beginning of the pandemic, I wrote about the metaphysical reasons for the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
think that so many people at the time were out of balance with themselves,
Absolutely.
right? Maybe they were financially overextended. I think there was a great deal of overextension,
Mm.
energetically overextended, right? And coming back to a re-evaluation of what you actually value, right?
Yes.
So many people at the time were renovating their home because they're like, wow, I really value my home,
Uh-huh. But
right?
it was a journey back to self. It was that wonderful gift of pause that they wouldn't have taken on their own. And numerous people that I got to interview through that time period saying, I'm perpetually on a phone, on a plane, going here, there, and everywhere. And now I've been forced to do all of these meetings by Zoom, and it's made me traveling this way and that way and everywhere else redundant, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or I have looked at my career and I realize it doesn't matter if I'm good at it, I'm miserable at it. This is the time to pivot and go in a new direction, to take that time to go in, because life is an inside out journey. What do I really want? What do I really stand for? What am I really here to do? And so, although it was totally traumatic on many levels, physically, people who died, people who lost incomes, people, the whole shattering of the medical system, economic system, even the depression it's thrown people in. The universe gave me a saying 5 years ago: the universe is going to shake us up, to wake us up, for us to step up, to change it up, and to grow up vibrationally, also grow up as a human race. And that was a huge global shakeup. And it was a shakeup because it is saying you have got to change it up. You've got to stand up. You've got to be a part of the change that we need. And it comes from the individual consciousness to rise to a level of a universal consciousness.
I think also that, Sarah, there was a greater awareness of our interconnectedness.
Yes,
So even just as like, oh, if I don't take care of my health, I might make my mother sick,
right. Yeah, exactly.
right?
Yes.
So I've got to take responsibility for my
Hmm.
own health so that I don't infect other people. So, and the awareness that someone in China or Brazil could get sick and make, people all over the world
Hmm.
sick, right? So helping us have a greater appreciation of our interconnectedness, I think
Also,
would.
responsibility. I mean, how many businesses, I don't care if you've got the flu or bronchitis, you turn up at work, and the next thing you know, everybody's got it. And nobody wants to take time out because they might lose their job. Just take the drugs and work through it. Where we know you get sick, but one of the big things we'd say is rest, 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 right? Especially in those first few days where you've got to get over or go through the hub of it, the eye of it. And now it's changed where people, you're sick, don't you come to work? I don't want it. It might be COVID, but it could be just a cold. I don't want it. And it's made us more aware. And also, I think, kind of step more into care of please take care of yourself. Whereas before, people felt guilty of taking care of themselves.
For sure. And another way I think it made us aware of our interconnectedness
Mhm.
was in making us aware of our need for connection,
Yes.
big time.
Yeah.
And I know that so many of the meetings that I'd held before COVID, they were in person. And
Mm.
then during the pandemic, then we switched to online. And then after that, everybody's like, we really like this being online thing because I can be anywhere and I can still stay connected to my friends.
Right. Yeah, I
Yes.
mean, it's great to be physically. I went out for lunch with a couple of ladies on Saturday, and it was great to actually sit around the table. But, the conversation would have been just as energetic, had we done it this way. There is something nice about literally the physical, but I think this is what some people don't understand about remote healing. Well, don't you have to be in the same room? Don't you have to touch me? Well, no, when you've tapped into a person, right? It doesn't matter where they are in the world. As you said, you just need to look at a picture and look into the eyes, and you
Right.
already know. And for people, it's like, but how does that happen? Well, COVID showed us how that happened. Because how
Right.
many people have turned to online?
Yes. And because there, and as a medical intuitive healer, one of the things that I've actually studied is physics, because energy healing is actually
Yeah.
physics. So, for example, this morning I did healing work with a gentleman who happens to be a billionaire with a B, and he was in Sedona. He was going to another state, and I read his energy system. His third chakra was blown out, and energetically I could clear the 7 layers of his aura, and I could clear his chakras from anywhere. So you
Right.
can, so there is no such thing as invisibility.
Right.
Someone who's
Exactly.
trained can read you and read your energy from literally anywhere.
Yeah.
And also with positive intention.
Mm.
um, and the simplest way of understanding positive intention is prayer, right?
hmm
If you think about the time that people spend praying, and I have a very strong prayer practice every day, twice a day. And I think that everyone who wants to do energy work, spiritual work, that having a strong, consistent prayer practice is part of how we stay connected, right?
Yes.
It's connected to, all that is.
hmm
And sometimes people ask me, how do you know what you need to know?
hmm
And I know when I wrote my second book, when I started my second book, which is called What is Healing? Awaken Your Intuitive Power for Health and Happiness, I started with just one thought, which is when you learn to love unconditionally, you know whatever you need to know. So when you
Yes.
love unconditionally, you know whatever you need to know. And so many of us are practicing judgment. So
hmm
judge, you're projecting out onto the universe. Oh, I already know what Sarah's going to say.
Yeah.
I already know what so and so thinks. Oh, I have that problem, so they must have it too.
hmm
I'm a hammer, they're a nail. And that's not reading.
No. No.
That's not reading. So when I do a medical intuitive reading, again, I create the space for you to experience your soul.
hmm
And on it, from my soul to your soul, I take a look with unconditional love to what's actually present. So that's the simplest way to explain what I do.
But there you mentioned the word love several times, and if we come from the heart, where our intent is with love, right? That love vibration is on such a high frequency, such a high hertz, such a high vibration. When you are in that love vibration, you cannot knowingly do any harm to anyone else, right? It is against everything that you are. And the prayer connection, whatever you are praying to, this is not about religion. This is about connection. And in a lot of ways, it is I'm open and ready to receive with gratitude, with responsibility, with love, because we all have some responsibility of what we do with our gift. We all have some responsibility over our choices. We don't always have control of what happens to us, but we have control over what we're going to do with it or who we become because of it. That is our choice. Bitter and twisted, revengeful and judgeful, or are we going to discover the strength, the courage, the abilities, the reason behind it that leads you to a path where you look at it and you go, everybody that I've interviewed that has gone through hell and back in a lot of ways. I mean, what has happening to them should never happen to a human being. But who they are today and what they're doing today, they said, I wouldn't change a thing.
Yes. And if you study sound healing, there's
hmm
something called solfeggio harmonics.
hmm
And many people are familiar with the Gregorian chants that the monks would sing.
hmm
So with solfeggio harmonics, there are different frequencies. And I believe it's 542 is the miracle frequency. It is the frequency of unconditional love.
hmm
But when you're in that frequency, first of all, you go into resonance with
Yes.
unconditional love. And then again, all healing is very simple. It's a reorganization
hmm
from low frequency to higher frequency.
hmm
And when you're putting yourself in the frequency of unconditional love, also known as non judgment,
hmm
also known as total acceptance,
hmm
right? When you're putting yourself in that frequency, then at the cellular level, you literally reorganize. And a simple thing to do is just you can go to YouTube and look up the miracle frequency. Again, it's 542, I believe, and it's that heart frequency. It's the F note if you're a music person, um, and putting yourself into that frequency, and it's known as the miracle healing frequency. And
There are
you
a lot
can,
of people that have stepped into, energy healing in with frequencies, even frequencies that you could have on your phone, frequencies that that you can have around you, so that if you're feeling, I'm feeling off balance, or I'm feeling, down a bit, that, kind of stepping into that frequency. Because I mean, what is illness? What is depression? What is anxiety? It's everything being out of kilter with each other, a lack of equilibrium and off balance. So when we can put ourselves back into balance, then our wholeness as a system can work very well. But we've got to keep ourselves in balance, don't we?
right. And again, it's just a matter of lifting your vibration.
Mhm.
And so we've all had that experience of you're down in the dumps, you go out in the sunshine,
Yeah.
a beautiful walk in nature, and your whole mind shifts and your attitude shifts and your energy shifts, and you begin to breathe better and you feel
Mhm.
better.
Yes. There are a lot of people in the courses that I do, there are a lot of people have shut their hearts down because they've, gone through some pain or heartache. And it's like, well, how do I open up my heart again? And I said, nature. Go and listen to the birds in the trees. Let the breeze run through your hair. Hear the ocean lap against the shore. And watch a child laugh as it, chases a leaf. Watch a dog chasing after a stick, little barks of joy. Step into what is natural, because what is natural is already resonating at that frequency.
Well, if your heart is closed, it's always for one of or two reasons. You're either punishing yourself,
Hmm.
right? Which means that you haven't forgiven yourself, or you're protecting yourself.
Yeah.
Or it could be both. You could be punishing yourself and protecting yourself. And part of unconditional love is really holding yourself with compassion,
Hmm.
and, and realizing that sometimes on the soul level, what's really going on is the opposite of what appears on the ego level,
Yes. Yes.
right?
Oh,
So
definitely.
we may have soul agreements with people that it's like, oh, so and so is going to hurt me so bad, and I'm going to hate them on one level. But on a soul level, then I realized that I was here to teach him something, or he was here to teach
Yes.
me something, or we were here to share something together. So just realize that if your heart is closed, or if you feel like you have a broken heart, ask yourself, am I punishing myself, or am I protecting myself, or both? And even on protecting yourself, when you realize that it's all God, it's all good.
Yes. Yes. And the soul can't speak for a closed heart. So you must open up that heart to receive the soul's message, because that's the guidance system, and the heart is the generator, right, for which everything else flows. And again, putting ourselves back in balance with the work that you do, you can see where things are out of sync, where the blockages are. We don't always, when, especially if you're in it, you don't always see it. And we also don't realize how much we're maybe taking on and carrying until we're feeling weighed down, but we don't know where's the weight, where are we carrying it? So we need someone like you who is that seer to see that chakra or this or that is off kilter. We need to realign it, regenerate it, and now you're back in sync. Because really, that's what it's about, isn't it? Being back in sync with ourselves.
Yes. And many of my clients actually are different kinds of healers. And
Mm.
some of them feel bad about themselves. And I'm like, there's something called the Johari window. And it's basically what you can't see about yourself. And we
Hmm.
all have one.
Oh, yes.
I have a very high level of self care, but when I get stuck, I turn to other intuitive friends
Hmm.
who can see what I cannot see about myself.
Yes.
You realize that everybody's got a Johari window. It's okay. And it's okay to get help from people who can have a perspective about
Mm.
you that you maybe can't see.
And also, you could have, residual carried something on from someone or something. and you just don't know where it came from or where, what it is because you are unable to see it yourself. And that goes back to community, where community is there for each other. The village is only as good as everyone's participation. And we're there for the bad times and the good times. And we know that the strength is the unison of each other. And the joy is in the unison of each other. The healing is in the unison of each other. And I think for a long time, it's got to be, no, you've got to wear all the hats. You've got to be on yourself. Don't trust anyone. Everybody's out to steal from you. And that ostracized ourselves and disconnected us. And then we're wondering, why are we all disconglobulated, right? And we realize we need each other. And there is so much healing in actually in giving a solution or just being supportive of other people, and how much healing that is back to you as well.
For sure. Because when you're actually do healing work effectively, you're basically channeling
Yeah.
energy, right? Only
Yes.
healers give away their own energy.
But perpetually, because if we don't, it actually kind of almost becomes too much. It's that energy is to come out of us. It is meant to be spent. It is meant to be shared, and you can't hoard it. It is something, otherwise you'll explode. It is, you talked about, Ray, in the beginning of of when people are depressed or anxious, go and do something for someone else. Depression is something that I've fought with in my life, and it is, I need to be proactive when I'm like that. I've got to go and help someone else. Music is huge because of the hertz, the sound, the frequency. Certain music resets me, but I've got to be proactive and be of service to someone else in order to help me through it. And I think, again, society kind of said me, myself, and I, and we realized that doesn't work. However, the more abundant and enriched and balanced you are within yourself, the more the gift you become to everyone else.
Yes. And you give every time you run a radio show.
We are sending it out to people. The game, though, it is listen, learn, and apply. If you listen and you learn something, if you don't apply it, then, all it does, you listen to something and yeah, I maybe learned something new, but if there's no application, no action taken, then it was just information. And I think where wisdom is different to knowledge is when we know how to use the knowledge, how to apply the knowledge in order to be productive or set ourselves free. I think that's the wisdom. Which knowledge is relevant in this now?
Yeah. Well, I put it even more simply, which is be the light.
Mm,
Be the light.
yes, yes.
It's
And if you're blinding anyone, it's just because they're coming out of the darkness. Tell them to put sunglasses on. They'll adjust. They'll adjust, right? The light is good. But it's also being able to go into the dark without fear and be the light in the dark, right? Darkness is not your enemy, not
yeah.
when you are the light. So if people, I mean, obviously you've got so many books and we've talked about a couple of them here. Is there any other books that you want to talk about that's in your entourage here?
People can find my books on Amazon, and if you don't like to read, 8 of them are available as audiobooks, so you can listen.
Mm, excellent. And again, that's a lot of people. There have been traffic jams on the way home, or they're going for a walk or whatever. They're doing the housework, right? It's great kind of just listen. And but I always say to people, please be present when you're doing something, even if you're mindlessly doing something physically because vacuuming or cleaning, and you don't need a brain for that, right? But be present with what is being spoken, because when you are present with it, that's when you connect with it, that's when you resonate with it, and that's where you know what it means for you and how to apply it and what to do with it comes next, right? So what kind of, if somebody wanted to reach out to you, and what would the system be that they would have to go through?
I've got two websites, catherinecarrigan.com and unlimitedergynow.com. You can also watch the videos of the Natural Healing Show for UK Health Radio on YouTube, and also listen to the podcast on UK Health Radio. But you can send me an email at catherinecarrigan.com.
Now, I'm going to spell your name for the people who are just listening, and that's Catherine, Catherine, Carrigan, Carrigan.com, and then the unlimitedergynow.com. And both their sites are there. And of course, your books are up there on Amazon. There's so many of them. And, really, quite honestly, you've got something for anybody. The YouTube channels, if they just wanted to kind of dive in or listen, maybe just to the breathing one, start off there. If you're wondering, well, where do I start? What do I do? Read a book, listen to a book, watch one of the videos, share. I always say to people, like, there are book clubs. I want there to be podcast clubs where people listen to the podcast and get together and each share what they learned from it. Because there again, you're sharing the whole from all these different perspectives. And I think if then we hold each other accountable and encourage each other to do something with it. So the point is, we're not alone. When we're ignited in our soul is always our guidance, our compass. Our heart is our generator, and that we've got to take care of all of those 5 senses of the body, of the wholeness. And that when something feels off, it is because something is out of sync. And you have the ability to see what the problem is so you can realign people to be back into their own flow.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. And thank you everyone out there for listening.
There's always an answer, folks. So sometimes it's really quite simple. A photograph, that's all she needs to look into the eyes or have a chat with you. Then you can start off by listening, reading, just trying something out. But your health is your choice, in a sense that if you want to heal, you've got to heal the whole of you. And until you know what area is in jeopardy or is causing the problem, you don't even know how to nurture it. So let Catherine see that for you. Let her be part of that nurturing and help you to nurture yourself. Until next time, folks, bye for now. We hope that you enjoyed the show. Find all of our shows on selfdiscoverymedia.com under podcasts or selfdiscoverymedia/shows. And for all our current shows, go to What's New. We are supported by you, the audience. You'll see a nice big shiny blue button for one-time donations, or follow us on Patreon and you will be able to support us there. We enjoy bringing you such wisdom. And the next show will be up in just a moment.